A millionaire CEO sees two children aged 10 who look like his ex-wife, whom he kicked out 10 years ago. It was the smile that shattered him. Not the noise of the street, not the sudden burst of laughter from the twins darting past him, not even the woman's voice calling after them. It was the boy's smile. Marcus Crawford stood frozen on the corner of 46th and Broadway, coffee cooling in his hand, staring at the two children who had just raced by. A boy and a girl, maybe 9 or 10, identical in their energy and movement. The girl had Sarah's chin, sharp, stubborn, unyielding. But the boy had his smile. The tilt of the lips, the gap between the front teeth he'd never gotten fixed because it had become part of his face, part of who he was. It wasn't possible. Not after everything. They were gone in seconds, swallowed into the bustle of Manhattan, leaving only footprints on his mind. But Marcus didn't move. Not at first. His world, perfectly ordered, measured in stock valuations and merger forecasts, had suddenly fractured. He dropped his coffee in the trash, turned, and followed. Not like a man possessed. No, not him. He was still the CEO of Crawford Technologies, still the untouchable billionaire who once made headlines for firing half his board with a single email. But his steps betrayed him. He was following ghosts, chasing pieces of a story that had supposedly ended a decade ago. When he found them again, outside a modest cafe, the children now sitting at a small table with a woman who wore her hair pulled back into a neat, practical knot, he stopped breathing. Sarah Chin. She hadn't changed much. Glasses, yes. A new scar along her collarbone he hadn't noticed in the photos. But her presence? That quiet, composed steadiness, it was exactly as he remembered. She was laughing softly at something the girl said. She reached out, instinctively brushing the crumbs from the boy's cheek. Marcus stepped back. He wasn't ready. Not for this. Not for the certainty that had just punched through a lie he'd lived in for a decade. 10 years earlier, it had ended in an office, sterile, quiet, brutal. He'd just returned from a second opinion on a diagnosis he hadn't shared with anyone. A quiet consultation with a private specialist who had confirmed what the first one said: Marcus Crawford was sterile. He'd gone home early that day, walked into Sarah's apartment, their apartment, and found her crying. She'd been so excited, so overwhelmed. "I'm pregnant," she had whispered, her hands shaking. And just like that, everything inside him shattered. The timelines didn't make sense. The numbers didn't add up. The specialist's words echoed in his skull like a sentence passed by an invisible jury. He'd walked out. He hadn't shouted. He hadn't accused. He simply left. And when she tried to follow, to explain, to scream after him in the rain, he got in his car and drove. The next morning, her number was blocked. Her emails unread. He told himself he had spared them both the cruelty of what he truly thought, that she had betrayed him. That she had lied. What he never knew, what he couldn't have known, was that his sister had intercepted Sarah's letters. Back then, Amanda Crawford had said it was for his own good. "She's toxic, Marcus. You're on the edge of something huge. This woman's going to drag you back into chaos. I won't let that happen." Amanda, the master of damage control, had shredded Sarah's handwritten letters. Letters in which she begged for him to come back. Letters where she'd attached copies of test results and offered names of doctors. Letters where she told him she was keeping the baby. Letters where she said, "I love you. You don't have to be the father, just don't vanish on us." Amanda hadn't told him about them until last year, and even then, only in passing, during a particularly tense Christmas when the topic of betrayal came up over wine. "You were better off not knowing," she said, shrugging. "I saved your reputation." "You're welcome." He hadn't spoken to her since. Now, staring at Sarah and the two children across the street, Marcus realized the weight of that theft. They were his. He didn't need a test to know. He knew in the way a soul recognizes itself, the boy's mannerisms, the girl's precision, Sarah's protectiveness. They were a family. His family. But he was a ghost to them. He backed away from the cafe, his mind already racing. There would be no press release about this. No strategic plan. He would not approach them today. Instead, he returned to the penthouse he no longer called home. It was just a holding space now, a place for suits and secrets. That night, he did something he hadn't done in years. He opened the box. Inside were the old letters Amanda had returned to him months ago, finally, crumpled, some tear-stained, some unopened. He read them all. And by morning Marcus Crawford knew one thing. He would fix this. Even if it broke him in the process. The letters smelled of ink and time. Some were smudged from the rain, others from tears. Each bore her handwriting, unmistakably hers, slanted and neat, with a habit of crossing her T's at an angle and curling her Y's like question marks. Marcus sat cross-legged on his Persian rug, the floor around him littered with pieces of his past he hadn't known he'd lost. The first letter was dated 3 days after he walked out. Marcus, I don't know if you'll ever read this. But I need you to know. He had stopped reading there the night before, overwhelmed. Now, in the pale light of morning, he continued. Her voice, distant yet alive on the page, unraveled the version of events he'd clung to for a decade. Sarah had not cheated. The math did add up. He had just refused to look at it. She had sent test results from 3 different clinics. She had offered DNA testing before the twins were even born. She had begged him to talk to her. But he had never responded. Because he never saw them. Amanda had made sure of that. At noon, he stood in front of her townhouse on Nob Hill. The intercom buzzed once before her voice filled the speaker, sharp as ever. Marcus? You're early. I'm in the middle of. We need to talk. Now. A pause, then the door clicked open. She wore her usual armor, neutral-toned blouse, high-waisted slacks, no jewelry but a watch that cost more than most people's rent. You look like hell, she said as he stepped in. He didn't sit. You intercepted her letters, he began. No preamble. No softening. Amanda's expression didn't change. You're welcome. He stared. You lied to me. You let me believe she cheated. You let me walk away from my children. Her shoulders lifted slightly. You were unraveling, Marcus. Remember? The night before you found out she was pregnant, you told me the pressure was suffocating you. The board was circling, the investors were nervous. I made a choice. You made my choice. I saved your legacy. Marcus took a slow breath. You destroyed my family. That made her flinch. A fraction. But he saw it. I didn't know there were children, she said, and for the first time, her voice wavered. I thought she was bluffing. I thought if I bought you some time, you'd come to your senses and reach out on your own. I didn't, he said quietly. Because I thought she was lying. Amanda looked away. I didn't think she'd keep them. He blinked. You thought she'd terminate? Silence. It was the only answer he needed. Marcus turned without another word. Her voice followed him down the hall. You were never meant to be a father, Marcus. You don't know how to love without control. At the door, he paused. That may have been true. It isn't anymore. That night, he found the twins again. He waited outside their school in Midtown, blending in with other late parents, leaning against a rented black SUV. The first to emerge was the girl, same determined walk, same sharp gaze scanning for familiar faces. She spotted Sarah before Marcus did, and her face lit up. The boy came next slower, flipping a Rubik's Cube as he walked. He glanced once at Marcus, eyes narrowing, and Marcus felt his breath catch. Then Sarah stepped out of the building. Her coat was the same shade of storm gray he remembered, her scarf the color of dried rose petals. He could have left then. He should have. But instead, he stepped forward. Sarah. Her body went still. The children turned, watching her, watching him. She didn't speak for several seconds. Her voice, when it came, was ice wrapped in silk. You're not supposed to be here. I need to talk to you. Now you need to talk? Her mouth curved bitter. 10 years too late. I didn't know. She blinked. Didn't know what? That I wrote? That I sent test results? That I was carrying your children? I didn't get the letters. Amanda. I don't care, she said sharply. Whatever story you've told yourself, keep it. You don't get to drop in now because your conscience decided to wake up. The boy stepped closer to her, slipping his hand into hers. The girl did the same on the other side. Marcus looked at them. I'm not here to hurt you. Any of you. Sarah's eyes were guarded, but behind them was something else. Not softness. Not yet. But pain. You should go, she said finally. Before I forget, I swore I'd never scream at you in front of them. He nodded. But before he turned away, he pulled something from his pocket, a creased envelope. This is for them. No pressure. No demands. Just truth. He held it out, not to her, but to the girl. The girl took it. Marcus walked away. In the SUV, he watched through the rearview mirror. Sarah didn't open the envelope. But she didn't throw it away either. And when the boy looked back over his shoulder, just once, Marcus met his eyes and nodded. He had been too late for their beginning. But maybe not for everything. Sarah stared at the envelope long after Marcus had gone. They were halfway home before she spoke, her voice low but steady. Did he say anything else? The twins, still quiet from the encounter, looked at each other. It was the boy, Noah, who answered. He said the envelope was for us. That it had truth in it. Truth, Sarah echoed, as if the word were a foreign object in her mouth. Ava, always the more perceptive one, didn't ask to open it. She simply placed it on the console between the front seats, and leaned back in silence. That night, after the kids had gone to bed, after dinner, homework, and the soft rituals that had become their comfort, Sarah sat at the kitchen table under a single pendant light and opened the envelope. Inside were three things. A letter addressed to Noah and Ava, handwritten in Marcus's precise, familiar print. A copy of a paternity test, freshly dated. And a fourth-grade drawing, a scanned image from the Crawford family archives, of Marcus at age 10. A school project, annotated in the margins by his mother. The resemblance to Noah was undeniable. It felt like a cruel echo. She read the letter first. It was not what she expected. No begging. No sweeping apologies. Just truth. The same man who once ran entire product divisions on whiteboards and instinct now wrote like a man with everything to lose. He told them he had failed. Not because he didn't love them, he admitted he hadn't known them long enough to even understand the word, but because he had been afraid. Afraid of betrayal, of being wrong, of weakness. He told them about Amanda. About the letters he hadn't seen. About the day he saw them for the first time, really saw them, on a Manhattan sidewalk, and knew the life he should have had was right there, laughing in a matching set of eyes. I won't ask you to forgive me, he wrote. You don't owe me that. But I'm here now. Whatever that's worth. At the bottom, he had written a number. A private one. This line is for you only, he added. No assistants. No gatekeepers. Sarah didn't sleep that night. Noah and Ava read the letter the next morning. Sarah watched them from the hallway, their small bodies hunched together on the couch, reading in silence. Noah's hand tightened into a fist, but his face remained unreadable. Ava, eyes wide, said only, He writes like someone who's lonely. They didn't ask to call him, but neither of them handed the letter back. Later that day, Sarah found the paternity test paper tucked into Noah's backpack. Folded carefully, not discarded. A week passed. Then 2. Marcus didn't reach out again. He didn't want to press. Every instinct, the executive in him, the fixer, told him to send flowers, to write again, to knock on their door. But he didn't. He waited. And then, one morning, a call came through. The line displayed a number he didn't recognize, but something in him, some primal instinct that had nothing to do with business, made him answer on the first ring. Hello? Silence. Then, It's Noah. The voice was cautious, pitched in that uncertain space between child and young man. Marcus didn't breathe. Thank you for the letter, Noah continued. I don't know if I want anything yet. But Ava says we should meet you. Once. In public. Somewhere safe. Marcus exhaled. Name the place. Central Park, Noah said. By the carousel. Sunday. Noon. Then he hung up. Sunday arrived with wind and sunlight. Marcus stood near the carousel entrance, hands in the pockets of his coat, trying not to look like a man preparing for trial. He saw them approach from the south path, Sarah walking a careful distance behind the twins. Noah was in a navy jacket, his hair slightly tousled like Marcus's always was after a haircut. Ava had a scarf tied in a way that Sarah used to do when she was nervous. It hit Marcus like a blow, how little and how much he missed. Noah stopped 3 feet away. No suits, he said. Marcus managed a smile. I took the note. Ava stepped forward. We have questions. Of course. Why didn't you ever check? Noah asked. If she lied. If we existed. Marcus's throat tightened. Because I was a coward. Ava tilted her head. You don't look like one. Looks, he said quietly, can be deceiving. They sat, eventually, on a bench, the three of them, while Sarah hovered at a distance. Not close, but not out of sight. Noah asked about the company. Ava asked about childhood. Marcus answered every question, sometimes faltering, never lying. He didn't tell them he'd memorized their school schedules, or that he'd watched videos of them online, ones Sarah had uploaded years ago under an alias. He didn't mention the scholarship fund he'd quietly set up in their name, untouched. He just answered. After 45 minutes, Noah stood. We have piano lessons. Marcus nodded. Thank you for meeting me. Ava looked up. We might want to do this again. Maybe. Marcus watched them go, standing as they rejoined Sarah. She met his eyes once, long enough for a silent exchange. Not yet. But maybe. That night, Ava left her drawing pad on the kitchen table. Sarah flipped through it absently until she reached the last page. 3 figures sketched in pencil. One had glasses. One had a crooked smile. One, the tallest, stood in the middle. Beneath it Ava had written 2 words. Maybe Dad? Marcus sat alone in the boardroom, the city sprawled beneath him. The glass windows offered a panoramic view of his empire, sleek, gleaming, distant. His reflection stared back, a man who once measured success in shares and silence, now waiting on a call from 2 10-year-olds who might never dial. They hadn't reached out again. It had been 9 days since Central Park. Noah's questions still echoed in his mind, pointed, careful, delivered with an intelligence Marcus recognized too well. Ava had said, maybe. But, maybe. From a child is a fortress with a drawbridge made of matchsticks. One wrong step, and he'd be shut out again, this time for good. He'd spent most of his life building leverage. But here? He had none. He was negotiating without a seat at the table. That afternoon, Rachel, his executive assistant of 15 years, stepped into the office with a folder tucked under one arm. I took the liberty of compiling background on their school. Music programs, extracurriculars, anything you might want if you're trying to show up. Marcus hesitated. I'm not trying to impress them. Rachel's gaze was steady. Then show them you care by learning. That's not manipulation. That's parenting. He opened the folder and began to read. Sarah wasn't sleeping. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Marcus, not as he was now, in expensive wool and measured grief, but as he'd been on the day he left, cold, unreadable, silent. And yet, he'd waited in the park. Answered every question. He hadn't tried to win them over with gifts or flashy promises. Just honesty. That was what unnerved her the most. One night, while folding laundry, Ava spoke. Mom? Yes? Did you ever want us to meet him? Sarah paused. I didn't think it was safe. You mean emotionally? Ava clarified. Sarah blinked. Where did you learn that word? Therapy, she said simply. Miss Janine says sometimes kids protect their parents too. Sarah sat down. You're 10. I'm also me. Noah wandered in next, earbuds in. He's reading our school newsletter. Sarah raised an eyebrow. How do you know? I saw him on the digital subscriber list. Ava grinned. You hacked the school server? Noah shrugged. Not hacked. Just logged in as the principal. Her password was her dog's name. Sarah should have been furious. Instead, she laughed, the first real laugh in days. Then she sobered. Do you want to see him again? Ava nodded slowly. I want to know him. Noah looked conflicted. I want him to earn it. Sarah didn't respond immediately. But that night she sent a message. To Marcus Crawford. Subject Sunday. Same bench. Noon. But this time you answer to me. He arrived early. This time, it was Sarah who approached first, alone. She wore jeans, her coat unbuttoned, hair down. You're persistent, she said, not unkindly. I'm terrified, he admitted. But I'm here. They sat. The silence was long, but not hostile. I know about Amanda, she said. You don't have to keep explaining. Marcus nodded. But you still don't trust me. No. And neither should they. Not yet. A pause. I don't want to take anything from you, he said. I just want to be allowed to give. To them? And to you. In whatever way you'll let me. Sarah looked away. You left me in the rain, Marcus. I was carrying 2 children and you didn't ask a single question. That silence? That was violence, too. He nodded. I know. I'll never forgive myself for that. She studied him. You don't get to be their father yet. But you can be around. If they ask for you. No surprise visits. No headlines. No Crawford Tech Air drama. You come in quietly. And you leave when I say. Marcus met her eyes. I accept your terms. She hesitated. And if they decide someday to shut the door completely? I stay on the porch, he said quietly. Forever, if I have to. A flicker of something passed through her. Not trust, not yet, but perhaps recognition. Sarah stood. They're coming. Don't overwhelm them. Never again. He promised. And when Ava came into view, walking ahead of her brother, Sarah let herself breathe. They weren't rewriting the past. But maybe, just maybe, they were beginning to write something new. Ava turned 11 in March. She didn't want a party, not a big one anyway. Just pizza and friends, she said. And maybe karaoke, but only if Noah doesn't sing. Sarah smiled, grateful. Ava was easy to please, except when she wasn't. She had inherited that from both parents, Marcus's precision, Sarah's restraint. What Ava didn't say, what she hadn't said in the weeks since their last visit to Central Park, was that she wanted Marcus there. Sarah didn't ask. She waited. On the Tuesday before the birthday, Ava slipped into the kitchen after dinner, hair damp from her shower, clutching her phone. I want to invite him. Sarah didn't need to ask who. She nodded once. Okay. Want help writing it? Ava hesitated. No. I already did. I just wanted you to know I hit send. Sarah leaned against the counter. Do you want me to be there if he comes? Ava looked up. I want him to see what he missed. But I want you to see that I'm okay either way. Marcus read the message twice before responding. Hi, Marcus. It's Ava. I'm turning 11 on Saturday. We're doing pizza and cupcakes at the apartment. You can come if you want. Not a big thing. Just a thing. He stared at it for several minutes, heart pounding harder than it had during any shareholder vote or quarterly earnings call. Then he typed. I'd be honored. Thank you for inviting me. What kind of cupcakes should I bring? On Saturday, Marcus stood in front of their building holding a box of cupcakes from the most absurdly well-rated bakery in Manhattan. He'd ordered one of everything: lemon, chocolate, red velvet, peanut butter, afraid to guess wrong. He wore jeans. No blazer, no monogrammed cufflinks. Just a navy sweater and a windbreaker. He looked like a man who didn't want to scare a child. Sarah opened the door. She didn't say anything at first. Just took in the sight of him, uncertain, unguarded, holding that ridiculous pastry box like it was a peace offering. "Come in," she said. "Shoes off." The apartment was modest, warm, cluttered in the way that only real homes are. Marcus noticed a stack of science magazines on the coffee table, a half-built Lego castle in the corner, a scratched upright piano against the wall. Ava was sitting on the floor with two friends, tying ribbons onto gift bags. She looked up, saw him, and didn't flinch. "Hi," she said. "Hi," Marcus replied, suddenly unsure of what to do with his hands. "I brought too many cupcakes." Noah emerged from the hallway, hands in his hoodie pockets. He didn't smile, but he gave Marcus a curt nod. "Hi," he said. It wasn't warm, but it wasn't cold. Sarah took the cupcakes and disappeared into the kitchen, leaving the three of them in a quiet triangle of tension. Ava broke it first. "You want to help decorate?" Marcus blinked. "I don't want to intrude." "You're already here," Noah said flatly. Ava shot him a look. "That's not what we talked about." "I'm just saying." Marcus stepped forward. "I'm not trying to be something I'm not. But if you let me tie ribbons, I'll make fewer mistakes than if I tried to sing." Ava grinned. "Deal." The evening passed with the soft, steady hum of cautious inclusion. Marcus tied ribbons, poured juice, and carefully stayed on the edge of photos. When the kids sang off-key renditions of pop songs, he clapped too loudly. When Ava blew out her candles, he didn't ask what she wished for. He knew better. After the last guest left, Ava pulled out a card she'd hidden behind her bookshelf. "I got you something," she said. Marcus looked confused. "But it's your birthday." Ava handed him the envelope anyway. Inside was a drawing, 3 stick figures holding cupcakes. One wore glasses. One had a crooked smile. The middle figure held a sign. "Cupcake Dad." "It's not much," she said. Marcus felt his throat close. "It's everything." From the hallway, Sarah watched him gently fold the drawing and place it carefully in his wallet, next to the only other thing he kept there, a photo of his late father. He caught her watching and didn't speak, just nodded once, a silent thank you. And in that moment, Sarah understood something. He wasn't here to rewrite the past. He was here to earn the future. One ribbon, one cupcake, one moment at a time. The story was bound to crack eventually. It began with a leak. A junior associate at a private investment firm forwarded a routine shareholder report to a colleague over lunch. A line item, barely more than a footnote, noted a recent uptick in discretionary spending from Crawford Technologies' personal fund. An internal inquiry. Legal consultations. An uncharacteristic increase in anonymous charitable giving. The colleague wasn't careless. Just curious. That night, she mentioned it to her roommate, a gossip columnist who had once been burned by Marcus Crawford's media team and was always looking for a crack in the armor. Within days, the pieces began to swirl. Marcus Crawford, uncharacteristically absent from key investor events. A child's drawing visible in a candid shot, tucked in his wallet. Sightings in a family neighborhood. An anonymous source at Crawford Technologies confirmed. "He's different lately. Softer. Distracted." Speculation followed. Illegitimate children? An affair? Secret illness? Sarah saw the headline before Marcus did. "Does Marcus Crawford have an heir?" New clues point to a secret life. The article was careful, but the implication was loud. A blurred photo of Marcus outside their apartment. A rumor of children. No names. No confirmation. But it was enough. Sarah met Marcus at a diner near her hospital shift the next morning. She didn't waste time. "They know. I know." He looked worse than she'd ever seen him. Not because he was disheveled, he wasn't. But because he looked like a man holding back a flood. "I didn't say anything," he said. "I would never." "I believe you." She stirred her coffee, not looking at him. But belief doesn't fix what's coming. They don't have names. Photos. They don't need them. They have a narrative. She leaned back, folding her arms. And narratives get picked up fast. Marcus lowered his voice. I'll handle it. Sarah's eyes flashed. How exactly? You'll bury it in NDAs? By silence? No, he said quietly. I'll tell the truth. She blinked. To the press? To the board. He clarified. The press only wins if I lie. But if I say nothing, or worse, hide, it paints a target on all of you. I won't let that happen. Sarah studied him. For all his faults, all his failures, he had never once deflected responsibility. Not since Central Park. But this was a different kind of storm. That evening, Marcus called a closed session with the Crawford Technologies board. He didn't tell them everything. Not about Amanda. Not about the letters. But he told them enough. That he had 2 children. That he had reconnected with them. That they were not part of any inheritance scheme or backdoor succession plan. This is personal, he said simply. And I'm asking the company to respect the boundary between who I am as CEO and who I am as a man trying to make things right. There were murmurs. A few sharp looks. One executive, an older man named Laramie, leaned forward. Respectfully, Marcus, this will leak wider. And when it does, it will change public perception. Marcus didn't blink. Then let them perceive. Later, in the elevator, Rachel looked at him sideways. You just walked through fire without a suit. I had it coming. She smiled faintly. They respected it. Even the ones who won't admit it. Sarah received a call from her department head the next morning. Is there something I should be aware of? She braced. About Marcus? About your family. Reporters are sniffing around. One called our office pretending to verify a grant. Sarah closed her eyes. What did you say? I told them you were in surgery. Which you were. A pause. Do you want me to issue a statement? No, Sarah said. But I'll be out for the rest of the day. She picked up her phone. To Marcus, it's here. Full force. They called my office. His response was immediate. Do you want me to make it stop? I'll go public. Take all of it. She stared at the screen. Not yet. Let me talk to them first. That night she sat the twins down at the kitchen table. The living room hummed with leftover party decorations. Ava still had cupcake frosting under her fingernails. They know, Sarah said quietly. The press? Noah asked. He already knew. Sarah nodded. Ava looked worried. Will they come here? Maybe. But we'll protect you. They were quiet for a while. Then Noah said, let him protect us too. Sarah blinked. What do you mean? He wants to help, Ava said. Not like, fix everything. But be part of it. You trust him? Sarah asked, not masking her concern. Noah didn't answer immediately. Then, I don't trust him to be perfect. But I trust him to try. Sarah looked at them, her children, and knew the decision had shifted. It wasn't hers anymore. Not entirely. 2 days later, a press release went out. Marcus Crawford confirms private family relationship. No further comment will be made. And beneath it, the sentence Sarah had added herself. They are not a story. They are my children. The press didn't let go. But eventually they let it drift. No photos emerged. No names. No tell-all exposé from a bitter ex or a gossip-hungry neighbor. In the absence of drama, the story softened, transformed from scandal into human interest. Billionaire reconnects with lost family. A headline now more curious than cruel. And Marcus? He just kept showing up. He learned their routines. Mondays, Ava had art club. Tuesdays, Noah had robotics. Wednesdays were piano. Fridays meant pizza, always from the same hole-in-the-wall shop on 84th. He never stayed too long. He didn't push. He learned when to ask questions and when to just listen. And slowly, the walls began to shift. It was Noah who invited him to the school's science fair. "You don't have to," he said, eyes fixed on the floor. "It's just a project on sustainable architecture." "I mean, it's not." "I'd like to come," Marcus said simply. That Friday, he stood in the gymnasium, surrounded by trifold poster boards and the buzz of preteen ambition, watching his son explain how skyscrapers could recycle rainwater and reduce energy use by 40%. He didn't interrupt. He didn't step in. But when Noah caught his eye from across the table, Marcus gave the smallest nod of encouragement. Afterward, they stood outside together. Noah fidgeted with the edge of his coat sleeve. "You would have liked Grandpa," Marcus said, unprompted. "He built things with his hands. Not like me, actual things. Benches, boats. He taught me about integrity. About following through." Noah didn't speak. "I think he would have been proud of you," Marcus added. Still nothing. But Noah's shoulders loosened slightly. And when Sarah arrived, she found them standing side by side, not speaking, but not needing to. Ava's trust came differently. Not through logic or admiration, but through laughter. It happened during a visit to the Natural History Museum. Marcus had taken both kids while Sarah caught up on surgical paperwork. Ava had dared Marcus to read every single plaque in the dinosaur exhibit aloud in a British accent. He'd tried. Terribly. Noah rolled his eyes, but Ava giggled so hard she snorted. "You sound like a butler having a breakdown," she wheezed, clutching her side. "Excuse you," Marcus said in his worst Downton Abbey impression. "I am Lord Triceratops of the Upper Cretaceous." From then on, she called him Lord T. At home that evening, she sketched him in a crown and a monocle, riding a dinosaur. She taped it to the fridge. Sarah said nothing, but she didn't move it. Still, there were limits. At school, they didn't mention him. He wasn't Dad. He wasn't on the emergency contact list. He didn't drop them off or pick them up. He stayed on the edge of their lives like a constellation, visible, not yet tethered. And Marcus accepted it. Because to be let in even a little was a privilege he hadn't earned, but was desperate to keep. One evening, Sarah found him lingering in the hallway after a late drop-off from the museum. "Come in," she offered. He looked startled. "Are you sure?" "They're asleep," she said. "I made tea. And I think you should see something." Inside, she handed him a photo album. It wasn't glossy or curated. Just a simple black binder. Inside were moments he had missed: Noah's first steps, Ava's first lost tooth, birthdays, scraped knees, messy handprints, snowmen. A life that had grown without him. He turned each page slowly, fingers lingering on the edges. "I didn't keep them from you," Sarah said. "You just weren't there." Marcus looked up. "I know." But she saw it in his face, the ache. The wonder. The guilt. She reached for the last page and slid something out, a folded drawing from years ago. 2 stick figures, a small girl and a boy. Between them, a blank space. "I used to think," she said softly, "that if I filled that space myself, they'd never feel it." Marcus didn't answer. He didn't need to. Because the truth hung between them, undeniable, unfinished, but real. They couldn't undo what was lost. But maybe, just maybe, they could learn what it meant to begin again. Marcus rewrote his will quietly. No lawyers from the firm, no press statement. Just a single meeting with a family attorney who represented the Crawfords before there were stocks to buy or assets to split. He didn't leave everything to the twins. That wasn't the point. Instead, he wrote them into the foundation of his life, not as heirs, but as legacy. Education funds. Trusts managed in Sarah's name. A clause that protected their privacy explicitly. A directive to name no buildings after them, to leverage no public goodwill through their image. He made one final change before signing. He designated Ava and Noah Crawford, Thompson as beneficiaries of his private shares, the ones that couldn't be sold, only inherited. The same shares Amanda had once tried to hoard for political leverage. He left a letter with the documents. Not a speech. Just a paragraph. If you ever choose to use this, if the time comes when it matters to you, do it with integrity. Do it better than I did. And if you never want to touch any of this, that's okay too. You owe nothing to my name. Only to yourselves. A month later, the kids came to his office for the first time. Marcus cleared the entire floor. Not for ego. For space. Ava was fascinated by the architecture. Noah was unimpressed by the view, more interested in the company's internal design schematics. He found a flaw in one of the blueprint renderings pinned to the wall and offered a correction so casually that Marcus had to sit down. Sarah watched them move through the space like it was a museum, something foreign but curious, not intimidating. You sure about this? She asked quietly, joining him by the window. I'm not showing them what they could have, he said. I'm showing them what they don't need to be. She studied him. You mean you? He didn't deny it. That night, as they stood at the elevator, Ava asked, Do you ever get bored of all this? Marcus blinked. Of what? The glass. The marble. Everything matching. It's so shiny. He smiled. More than you know. Noah tilted his head. Then why'd you build it like this? A pause. Because I thought if I built something perfect, I wouldn't feel broken. Neither child replied. But as the elevator doors closed, Ava leaned over and bumped her shoulder lightly against his. It wasn't a hug. But it was enough. Margaret Crawford died in May. She passed quietly, in the hospice wing of the same hospital where Sarah practiced. The children were there the night before, Ava reading poetry aloud from her school anthology, Noah bringing a Rubik's Cube to show her he'd finally solved it blindfolded. She made them laugh, even then. Called Marcus by his full name, Marcus Alistair Crawford, as if she were scolding a boy who'd forgotten to write a thank you note. And when Sarah bent down to adjust the 4-line, Margaret caught her hand. Thank you, she whispered. For all of it. Marcus arrived just after dawn. The nurse was folding Margaret's blankets into a cart. Her body had already been taken. Only the faint scent of lavender and the window cracked an inch remained. He sat in her empty chair, one hand resting on the armrest she'd worn down from months of waiting. He didn't cry. Not yet. The funeral was small. Private. Just as she'd requested. No cameras. No headlines. Only those who had meant something to her, and those she'd meant everything to. Sarah stood beside the twins. Marcus spoke briefly. One paragraph. That was all. She never asked for gratitude. Only grace. She gave more of it than any of us deserved. Later, at the graveside, while the others walked toward the cars, Marcus stayed behind. Noah stood next to him. She loved you, Noah said quietly. I didn't deserve it. She gave it anyway. Marcus looked at him, surprised. You think that's strength? Noah considered. I think it's power. The inheritance was not a surprise. Margaret had left her estate, modest by Crawford standards but still considerable, to the twins, split evenly. Not in their names directly, but through a trust managed jointly by Sarah and an independent fiduciary. Sarah opened the will in her apartment 2 days later. Marcus was there, not because he had to be, but because she asked. I thought she'd leave it to you, she said. She did, he replied, nodding toward the kids. She left me what matters. Ava flipped through the pages, puzzled. She left a letter. For each of us. Inside hers, a single sentence in delicate script. You already know who you are. Never let anyone convince you otherwise. Noah's letter was different. Your mind is your gift. But don't forget, your heart is the key. Sarah's was folded in thirds. Private. She didn't read it aloud. But her hands trembled as she closed it and slipped it into a book on the shelf. Marcus received nothing formal. Only a sealed envelope left on the nightstand in her hospice room. He opened it alone, that evening. It held a photograph, an old one. Him at age 4, sitting on her lap, a toy airplane in his hands. On the back, in fading ink, "You were never unlovable. Just afraid." That night, he sat outside the apartment building long after the lights went off. He didn't go up. Didn't knock. But when he started the engine, he saw a light flicker in the window. A silhouette. A hand? Noah. Not waving. Just there. Still there. Spring crept into Manhattan slowly that year, like a city remembering how to breathe again. It had been a year since Marcus first saw them on the sidewalk. 1 year since the impossible recognition of himself in two strangers' faces. Since the letters. Since Central Park. Since he stopped building things and started rebuilding something instead. He stood now on the stoop of a brownstone on East 91st, a key in his pocket, doubt in his throat. The house wasn't for him. That was never the point. 3 stories. Brick, quiet, unassuming, nestled between a shuttered bakery and a bookstore that smelled of paper and time. He'd bought it months ago under a trust. Not a gift. Not an apology. A seed. And he waited until Sarah asked the question herself. "Why here?" Marcus looked up at the windows. "It's near the hospital. The kids' school. The park. You were paying attention." "I always was. Just not in the ways that mattered." Sarah ran a hand along the banister. "It's beautiful. It's yours. All of yours." She turned sharply. "I told you. I'm not buying anything. There's no title in my name. No strings. Just a place. If you want it." She stood in the entryway, the sunlight catching on the hardwood, and said nothing for a long time. Then, softly, "Noah wants a place to build models. Ava wants a bigger bookshelf. I want stairs that don't creak at midnight." He smiled. "Then it's yours." They moved in quietly. No announcement. No press. Just boxes, books, and the slow accumulation of fingerprints on glass. Noah set up his workbench in the top-floor alcove, blueprints, cardboard, tiny beams glued with surgical precision. Ava claimed the corner room and filled it with sketches and sound, always music, always penciled to paper. Marcus visited on weekends. Sometimes weeknights. Sometimes not at all. He let them reach for him now. And they did. Ava asked for his help assembling a new easel. Noah handed him a mock-up and said, "Tell me what's wrong with the structure." Even Sarah, reserved, precise, began asking him to stay longer for dinner. "I can wash up," he offered once. She raised an eyebrow. "You're a billionaire, not a dishwasher." "I'm in recovery," he replied. "Let me load the plates." It was a Tuesday evening, just after the first rain of May, when Ava emerged from her room, holding a folder. "I have something." Marcus, seated with Noah at the kitchen island reviewing a physics project, turned. "What is it?" She handed him the folder. Inside was a drawing, 3 figures on a porch. One wore glasses. One had a Rubik's Cube. The third, taller, wore a crown made of gears. She'd drawn a sign above them. "The house that love rebuilt." Marcus blinked. "It's not for you," Ava said quickly, suddenly shy. "It's for all of us." He nodded, throat tight. "Even better." That night, Sarah walked him to the door. He paused on the threshold, the city humming around them. "I don't want to push," he said quietly. "I don't need a title. Not Dad. Not even family." Sarah looked up at him. "They already know who you are. I just don't want to take anything from what you built." "You didn't," she said. "You're not taking. You're part of it now." He turned the doorknob, then stopped. "Would it be all right," he asked, "if I called this home too?" She smiled, not soft, not tender. Solid. "If you show up. If you stay. If you mean it." "I do." "Then yes." The door closed behind him, and he stood for a moment on the stoop of the house on East 91st, listening. Laughter upstairs. The sound of a chair scraping across the floor. A piano note, off-key but full of life. And in that moment, for the first time in decades, Marcus Crawford wasn't the man who had everything. He was the man who had enough.